2 Samuel 16 verse 23. And the counsel of Ahithophel, which he counseled in those days, was as if a man had inquired at the oracle of God. So was all the counsel of Ahithophel, both with David and Absalom. Ahithophel had a well-deserved reputation for giving counsel almost as good as God. Ahithophel was not a regular man. He was wise. He had a wisdom that very few men can attain. He was gifted. Kings would come to him because he communicated with God Almighty. I am not talking about regular people would come to him. No. Men like David who were hand-picked and chosen by God, would come to Ahithophel for counsel and advice. Men like David, who are described as being a man after God's own heart, would come to Ahithophel for counsel. Ahithophel was gifted. Ahithophel spoke as the oracle of God. He was a unique man. Look here. We are told that the counsel of Ahithophel was as if a man had inquired at the oracle of God. Ahithophel was not an average man, but yet he is someone that a lot of Christians have never ever heard of. He was a man who was a leading counselor for David for many years, and a relationship between him and David formed. They fellowshipped together. David described Ahithophel as his own friend in Psalm 41 verse 9. These men were close. 2 Samuel 17 verse 23. And when Ahithophel saw that his counsel was not followed, he saddled his ass and arose, and gat him home to his house, to his city, and put his household in order, and hanged himself, and died, and was buried in the sepulchre of his father. Now the question is, why did this wise man, Ahithophel, commit suicide? The answer to this question, we have to look to the Bible. And the Bible tells us in 2 Samuel 23 verse 34 that Ahithophel had a son named Eliam. The fact that he had a son named Eliam becomes more significant when David inquired about Bathsheba in 2 Samuel 11 verse 3, which says, And David sent and inquired after the woman. And one said, Is not this Bathsheba the daughter of Eliam, the wife of Uriah the Hittite? By this scriptural account, we find that Bathsheba was the granddaughter of Ahithophel. We all know about the story of David and Bathsheba. Now the thing about Bathsheba that a lot of people forget is that she had a family. But we only ever hear about her murdered husband Uriah. But Bathsheba had a family. She had a mother and a father, and she had a grandfather called Ahithophel. Ahithophel loved her like any grandfather loves their grandchildren. You haven't known love yet until you have grandchildren. And Ahithophel loved his grandchild Bathsheba, and he had to watch David ruin her life. Her life was ruined because of David. Bathsheba had been happily married to Uriah, whose name means Light of Jehovah. Uriah was a commander in David's army. He had been passionately in love with Bathsheba and died, never knowing of his wife's adultery and dishonor. Although Ahithophel hated David for what he did, he carried on working, counseling David for over 8 years. Waiting. Ahithophel carried that grudge for years, and David never knew it. David had absolutely no idea. Ahithophel was part of the rebellion with Absalom, David's son. When Ahithophel saw that his advice to Absalom to attack David immediately and kill him was rejected, He knew that David would come out the victor and there was no future for him. So he went home, related the events to his family, and according to Josephus, he went into an inner room and hanged himself. And the family buried him. Now the question is, what led this man to taking his own life? Bitterness. The counsel of Ahithophel was as if a man had inquired at the oracle of God, yet bitterness consumed him. Ahithophel was a wise man, yet bitterness consumed him. Yes, what David did was wrong. Yes, what David did was immoral. To go after a married man and have that married woman's husband killed because he committed adultery with his wife. But David made amends with the Lord, and the Lord forgave him. But Ahithophel was full of unforgiveness. He wanted vengeance. Ahithophel wanted to be the judgment of the Lord. He waited and took his time. And just as I am preaching right now, there is someone who is in the same situation as Ahithophel. People have wronged you. I am not for 1 second justifying what they did to you. What they did to you was wrong. What they did to you was immoral. What they did to you was sick and vindictive. No one is justifying their action, but you have to forgive. Do not allow bitterness to consume you like it did to Ahithophel. Bitterness can consume your very soul. It can take all the joy in your life away. I remember preaching this sermon in front of a church congregation, and whilst looking into the congregation's eyes, I saw it all. I saw bitterness. I saw pain. I saw heartbreak. I saw betrayal. I saw tears. But I am here, reminding you, you have to forgive. You cannot hold grudges. Forgiveness. Forgive, forgive, forgive. You have to forgive. Unforgiveness is quite literally poisonous. Unforgiveness quite literally has the power to suck the very life out of your soul. Unforgiveness will eat away at you quietly. Unforgiveness will chip away at your health. Unforgiveness will quite literally consume an individual. Unforgiveness will destroy your marriage. Let me say that one more time. Unforgiveness will destroy your marriage. Someone needs to hear this today. Unforgiveness will destroy your marriage. At its very core, unforgiveness is poisonous, and the poison destroys you and you alone. Bitterness, resentment, hatred, animosity, and so many children of God are struggling with this area of unforgiveness. The joy of the Lord is no longer in their life because of unforgiveness. There is no joy in the life of a person who is full of unforgiveness. Bitterness will take your life away and make you quite literally a walking zombie. Years pass, and you are still angry at things someone did to you in your past. Bitterness, resentment, hatred, animosity. I am not saying for one moment that what they did to you was right. I am not trying to justify what they did to you. Yes, they wronged you. Yes, they mistreated you, but you have to let it go. And I am not for 1 second downplaying what they have done to you. I am not for 1 second justifying their actions. But I am here to simply remind you, you have to forgive. Not for their sake, but for your own. Bitterness will consume you. Yes, that man or woman stole years of your life away. Years you will never get back. But you have to forgive. Bitterness will eat you alive. It will take the very life out of your body. Yes, you are existing. Yes, your heart is pumping blood all across your body. But there is no life in you anymore because of bitterness. Unforgiveness is quite literally a dark shadow that will cover every aspect of your life if you let it. I don't know who needs to hear this, but there are people who quite literally walk every single day of their life with heaviness, a sense of heaviness. They have all this bitterness and unforgiveness weighing them down. Allow me to make it clear that when you forgive, you do not gloss over or deny the seriousness of an offense against you. Forgiveness does not mean forgetting, nor does it mean condoning or excusing offenses. You are not condoning what they did. What they did was wrong, and they will have to answer to the Lord about their offense. But all forgiveness is quite simply letting go. Letting go of bitterness. Letting go of all resentment. Letting go of all hatred. Letting go of all animosity. Forgive and let go. Let there be peace. Let there be joy among you and your neighbors, your colleagues and your family. Forgive, and the Lord will bless you. Forgiveness brings the forgiver peace of mind and frees him or her from corrosive anger. It requires letting go of deeply held negative feelings. Forgiveness empowers you to recognize the pain you suffered without letting that pain define you, thereby enabling you to heal and move on with your life.